Hey, do you guys want to talk about these cranks? Welcome back to Loam Tech. Today I'm going to be reviewing these $80 cranks I got from AliExpress. So if you're on a budget, this might just be the video for you. I'm Justin, and I'm a professional working in manufacturing and motorsports, but I got my start building bicycles, so I'm here to give my opinion on these super budget-friendly cranks. If you don't want to sit through this whole review, just know that these cranks are so nice, I bought them twice. I've really been enjoying riding on these, and they've worked excellent for me. So if you're on a budget, I think these are a great option. I've left an affiliate link in the description down below if you want to just go check them out. If you're more technically oriented, let's talk a little bit more in depth about these cranks. These cranks are Evo Sid brand, and they're kind of a 5-dev knockoff. I was able to get these from China in about 2 weeks from the date of order to the date of delivery. They come well packaged, and they're pretty high quality. They come in a few different colors. They come in black and kind of a silver titanium kind of color, and then this cyber color that I really like. Everything's stamped with 7075 aluminum. The machining on them is gorgeous. They come in a couple different packages. You can get just the cranks with the spindle, or you can get it with the bottom bracket included. The bottom bracket is made for a BSA 73 millimeter bottom bracket, but we'll talk about that here in a minute because it wasn't quite right. Being that these cranks are from China, I was curious about the actual material properties. So I did a couple quick tests here. I did a deformation test just using a punch, just a simple test to compare the different deformation on the parts. It's really hard to tell in the video, but there was a little bit of a difference between the 6061 and the cranks themselves, and they were much closer to the 7075 material that I knew. I also did a file test to see basically the hardness of the material. It was pretty obvious that these were a lot closer to the 7075 material than the 6061. However, they're not quite the same. The 7075 I had was a 7075 T7. I'm guessing these cranks are probably a T6 condition, which is a little bit more resistant to fatigue, which is probably a good thing, but they are definitely not 6061, which is also a good thing. So these cranks are 165 millimeter length, and I've been riding on them for several months on my transition patrol. I think they look great, and they've been functioning pretty much flawlessly. I haven't been super easy on them, but that being said, I'm not the craziest rider in the world. So if you're like a more advanced rider that has more skills than me, and you're really hard on your equipment, you might want to think about sticking with the name brand. But for me, I've had excellent luck with these so far. I'm about 205 pounds, so not the lightest rider either. Take that for what it's worth. I did have to tighten these cranks, like retorque the main bolt after the first couple rides, but ever since then they've been staying tight and I haven't had any problems. So all in all, I'd give these cranks a pretty good rating, especially considering the cost. Generally, they are pretty good quality. They do have a couple really cool features. They have this locking nut on the back side here. This is adjustable to take up any slop in your bottom bracket. And then it has a locking screw built into it. This was loose in the package when I first got my first set of these, so I made sure I Loctited this screw when I installed them. That's something you really probably want to do, or else you'll run the risk of losing that screw. And it's kind of a weird little, looks like a little M3 maybe torque screw. Looks a lot like a machine tool screw for holding in an insert. So that one would probably be hard to find in like a hardware store or something. So definitely don't lose that, Loctite that screw. Another cool feature is that they have like a fence here to hold this main bolt in, so that if you want to remove these cranks, you just loosen this main bolt and these will self-extract themselves off of the taper on the spindle. So that's kind of a cool feature. Really easy to get them apart for maintenance and whatnot. However, one of the caveats to this is there is a couple problems. First of all, I did have to retorque those main bolts like I mentioned. I think that's probably pretty common practice as everything gets seated in on the taper. But the second main problem comes with this bottom bracket that they supplied. They say it's for a BSA 73 millimeter. I measured the bottom bracket on my transition patrol and it's about 72.5 millimeter. So this should theoretically fit perfect, but it doesn't. Even without these spacers on there and with the bottom bracket screwed in tight, this width here was still a little bit too wide. And when you tighten the cranks down, they're pressing too much on this plastic race kind of thing that they have there. And they're kind of loading the cranks. So they wouldn't get all the way tight and they would load the bearings so much that the cranks would feel stiff. So on my particular bike, with a 72.5mm bottom bracket, I had to actually sand these surfaces of these plastic Delrin pieces down about 1 millimeter on each side to get the cranks just right to seat out perfectly, not load the bearings too much, but still get the cranks all the way tight. You could get rid of about 1 millimeter if you took this nut completely off and left it off, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted the future adjustability. So I opted to modify these plastic pieces. So that might be a little bit difficult for somebody that doesn't have a machine shop at their disposal. So that's something to consider when purchasing these cranks. So how I modified this easily was I just used my belt sander here, and this fence is perpendicular to this sanding belt. And I just basically rolled this along this sanding belt with it turned on, obviously, and just kept measuring across here with my calipers until I got roughly the dimension I wanted, and then I test fit, redid it until it fit right. So it was pretty easy to modify using this. I didn't use any super fancy machine tools, so I think that's something maybe some of you guys have access to, or maybe you have a friend that has access to it, but that did need to be modified. So all in all, guys, I'm really happy with this purchase. These things have been working great. The only problem being that having to modify those bushings for install. But beyond that, I'm super happy with them. Again, especially considering the price. These are 80 bucks shipped. And I actually got this second pair for $65 shipped on sale. So if you watch AliExpress, sometimes you can get even better deals. I bought this second pair for a future bike build that I'm gonna be working on. I'm gonna be building the coolest yet cheapest bike I can possibly build, mainly using components off of AliExpress, with the exception of a couple that I think should be name brand, just for performance sake. But as for these cranks, they've been performing really well. Nothing's getting loose anymore, nothing's rattling. Everything seems to be built quite well. The materials seem to be up to par, and I think that if you're on a budget and you're trying to put a bike together or maybe upgrade some components, these might be the way to go for you. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, go check out my video on the AliExpress brakes I put on my downhill bike. I did a review on those right here. And if you're interested in content like this, hit that subscribe button. Again, the affiliate link for these is down in the description. Thanks for watching, guys.